Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into episode 20. Can you believe it, boys? 20 episodes of the Fourth String Sports Podcast. I am your host, Brady, with my co-hosts, Mitch and Skylar. Gentlemen, say hi.
Hi, how's everyone doing today?
Oh, we're doing fine, Mitch. Thank you for asking. Today, I think we have an interesting team that we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that's kind of like an enigma wrapped in a puzzle, just stuck in the ass of the owners of the Chargers. That we're going to try to break down a little bit. We also got our what's and our putts that we're going to go through, our what's list. We're breaking down the 5 players who deserved to win the Heisman, who didn't. We're going to break down the player who deserved to win that, or who won the Heisman, who deserved it the least as well. And then we're going to get to our putts list, where we talk about teams, organizations, personal players, leagues, whatever, mascots who did a stupid thing that we just like to point out. And then on the next episode, we're going to cover the other Los Angeles team, the Rams. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. The last episode we did where you talked about the Raiders, so we're going to close out the AFC West here. I think this is the first division where we're going to actually close everybody out.
Yep.
We got the Rams on the next episode. But yeah, let's hop into it here. So before we hop into our what's list, there's been some interesting developments. So first off, just a quick shout out. We talked, I think on the last episode or 2 episodes ago, about how the Nets were going to be walking into the bubble with no players. And then the Nets turn around and sign Jamal Crawford, the ageless wonder of a human being, and Michael Beasley to their roster. So all of a sudden, this Nets team that we talked about is like, oh, man, there's no chance that these guys are going to do it. They actually add 2 studs. Well, they add a stud in Michael Beasley onto their roster. And we saw the damage that they could do in the playoffs last season. Now, Jamal Crawford isn't D'Angelo Russell, but, man, Jamal Crawford is a special basketball player, and I'm excited to see him in the bubble. But then the other point that we're going to get to is that it was officially announced today the Big Ten decided not to follow what the Ivy League did, where the Ivy League rescheduled all their games. They're canceling fall sports. They're going to reschedule in the spring. The Big Ten, and then shortly after joined by the ACC, and with talks of the Pac-12 and the SEC also in talks for this as well, the Big Ten decided to cancel all non-conference games. So this includes matchups that we were looking forward to. This is Wisconsin versus Notre Dame, Oregon versus Ohio State, Iowa State, Nebraska, Cincinnati. These matchups that we were so looking forward to all got canceled. And the Big Ten is going to go with just their 9-game conference schedule. Now, there is talks of them adding a 10th. There's questions, concerns on this. Is this a smart move by the Big Ten? Do you guys agree with this move to cancel the non-conference games?
I think it's a good measure instead of just, canceling it and just having a lost season. I think it's a good compromise just to play it all in conference. But like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how it's put in motion and how they could work out a potential 10th game. But I think it's the best of what was available.
Yeah, I think short of, because they can't be like, we're going to reschedule all of our games for the spring, because they can't do that. But I think if you limit it, take the Big Ten and go, okay, what can we control? We can control these 9 games. And it's not just football, it's volleyball, softball.
It's all fall sports.
It's all fall sports, yeah. Big Ten's all fall sports. So they can control those, and they can put them in. They can be like, okay, this is our testing process. This is how we're going to track people. This is how we're going to do everything. I think it is the best way in order to make sure everybody is playing safe and secure, and making sure, because a lot of things were for non-conference games. How are you going to keep track of teams coming into your stadium? How are you going to work that out with the testing and stuff like that? And so with just doing the Big Ten, and just getting those teams coming in, it can be a lot easier. I think for sports like volleyball, I think it's a good move, because I'm sorry, Big Ten volleyball is the best in the country. I mean, with Nebraska, Wisconsin, Penn State,
Minnesota's actually pretty good.
Minnesota's really good. I love watching Big Ten volleyball. And I think
get crap also watching women's volleyball, because they think like it's I understand it. Like, I get why weird that a guy would do that.
You're a true Nebraskan. You watch volleyball. That's what you need to do.
But see, that's the thing is, like, I remember watching volleyball, like, not only, like, women's volleyball with my dad, but also the beach volleyball during the Olympics, and then, like, Little League World Series and women's softball. And those sports are so wildly entertaining. I don't understand how women's volleyball, like, how they actually play that game, because it's so ridiculously difficult.
some of my favorite matchups to watch is Nebraska Wisconsin, because those women, they can hit the fuck out of that ball,
They
and
go
it's like
all out, man. It's
and it's like
so entertaining.
you're sitting there and you're like, holy shit, what is happening? It's
like you get like a massive rally where they're just back and forth,
and
you're like, how are they doing this? Because this ball is traveling at like 50 plus miles an hour, and everyone knows how hard a volleyball can be. Like everybody's accidentally gotten kicked in the face or kicked someone in the face with one. Like it's all happened.
Like Scott Sterling.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fucking love Scott Sterling.
but
he's
like,
rising through the air like an angel on the backs of his teammates.
It's truly like videos that I will always watch. Like every time
I can't stop laughing.
It pops up on my Instagram feed, like probably every 2 or 3 months. And I think I've had it saved like 3 different times on my phone because it's it's so funny to watch.
The volleyball's funnier than the soccer one, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it really is. But yeah, Big Ten decides to cancel. Now here's my thing. Here's what I would like to see. The Big Ten canceled what would basically be 3 games, right? So what if the Big Ten, once the season is over, in order to kind of make up for those 3 games, has a Big Ten football tournament the way that they do basketball, where you set it up with the top, I believe, 4 seeds get a bye, and from there, it's everybody gets into the tournament, and from there, everybody plays. So if Illinois is the worst team, or more realistically, if Rutgers is the worst team, Rutgers has to go play the 5 seed, who, we'll say for shits and giggles would be Minnesota or would be Iowa.
Yeah.
And then you go from there. And it's literally just winner, winner, winner until you end up getting a Big Ten championship game. Because if you actually play that, then the team who would play, the 2 teams in the Big Ten championship game would realistically play that 12 or 13 game full season. And it also kind of gives some of those other teams who maybe are walking into that at that 5-game bubble the opportunity to reach the 6 games that would be needed for a bowl win in order for bowl eligibility. I think that that's a good idea. And I think that if you do it in a controlled environment, and at this point, at that point, we're talking December, January, would most likely be December. I think we could be in a lot different place. Do I realistically think it's going to happen? No, but I think it's a good idea. And I think it could be entertaining to watch teams go back and forth like that in a sort of Big Ten football tournament.
Dude, if they did it like that, I think I could see Ohio State getting knocked off before the championship game. Because if you've seen them the past couple of years losing to teams that they shouldn't have, like Iowa most recently, I could imagine a team like, Illinois who's up and coming, or Minnesota, or some team like that just knocking them off like on the way there. And then that opens it up to like other teams that could win it.
We could get rematches where we could see in the Big Ten tournament Michigan State. We could see another Ohio State versus Michigan tournament game like that. We could see a Big Ten championship game that's literally Ohio State versus Michigan if the cards fall within a certain place. But it also gives us an opportunity for like a true Cinderella story that you don't get in conference football a lot. Where
you could give it to Minnesota last year. I don't think anybody expected Minnesota to be as good as they were last year.
But Minnesota didn't close out. Like they didn't win the West and they didn't get the chance to play the Big Ten. So no, I'm not taking away from the Minnesota season, but imagine if we did it that way, where Minnesota has their Cinderella season, right? They beat Penn State and they still lose to Wisconsin, and then they get into the tournament and they beat Wisconsin, and then they go on and they beat Michigan, and then in the Big Ten championship they beat Ohio State. Like imagine that storyline progressing. And if it's not Michigan, imagine it's Purdue, or it's Wisconsin, or it's Nebraska, or it's Michigan State, or it's whoever. I think that's if a team catches a couple breaks, man.
It
can happen. I think it would be such an interesting, for already a crappy college football season that we're going to have. It would be so interesting to watch that mano-a-mano Big Ten football in a tournament style matchup.
I think it's a possibility, but I think it's more of a possibility if there's no bowl season. If they decide to scrap the bowl season, then there's nothing we can do about it. We might as well go all out and like take all the teams, send them to Indianapolis, play in the fucking dome there that I can't, Lucas Oil Stadium. Yeah, I just go full out. But you know what? I'm already having low expectations for college football, at least. College basketball and college volleyball, I'm a little bit more high on. I think that they can figure some shit out because they have more time, and their sport isn't like grown men hitting each other. So, but I think that would be really exciting to watch. It'd be a lot of fun to watch. Like I would love seeing Illinois make it to that would be fucking hilarious if Illinois somehow just did that. But I'm as a Nebraska fan, I feel like I would just be like sitting there just watching my team get destroyed by another team again. But no.
Yeah, but like
the
reason that I kind of like it is that I've never been a fan of non-conference games unless they're marquee matchups. So unless it's Wisconsin versus Notre Dame at Lambeau or it's Ohio State versus Oregon, I don't like the warm-up games because they're useless to me. So
I think that the problem with that is the fact that the NCAA doesn't have like a unified idea of what a non-conference game can be.
True.
So because I feel like if the NCAA was like, okay, you're not allowed to schedule non-conference games against FCS teams, then non-conference would be a lot more exciting because then again we wouldn't have Alabama playing Jackson State before they have to play Mercer, before they have to play Auburn. It would just be like, okay, they have to play this team, or it's like, or like some teams can have a non-conference game in the middle of their fucking year. Yeah. Like unless it's like Nebraska where our game with Akron got canceled and we had to play Bethune-Cookman in November, that makes sense because our game had to be canceled. But if it's not that, then like I think that I feel like we're going to be seeing a revolution in college football in terms of scheduling and just play all around, because if there's one sport that really hates the NCAA, it's college football.
And I would like to see, my goal is that every team has one non-conference game so that they can have their warm-up game. It's their first game of the season. So that's where Wisconsin can play Southern Illinois, or Nebraska can play, Murray State, or
I have no idea who even was on our schedule.
Or like whoever can play whoever. But then you do the normal conference games, and then you do the play-in tournament, and where everybody gets in, and then that way a team who's sitting at that 5-7 mark. Like imagine during the Mike Riley era, or even the last couple of years where Nebraska was 5-7. Imagine if they had gotten into the tournament and then like beat some team in that first round. Then Nebraska's bowl eligible. I think it's great. It would be a great building block, honestly, for the Big Ten, because then if you get a Cinderella story, if you get Purdue who goes far, or you get Illinois who goes far, or even Maryland or whatever, it helps with recruiting. It helps elevate the competition of the Big Ten. Like, realistically, do I think it's going to happen? No. But I think if there was ever a time to institute it, it would be this season.
I think football is just a hard sport to do tournaments in general, where it's like, especially.
But like we do it in high school. Like that's how you play high school playoffs. Is that way?
I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you in that. But when I'm talking about like in basketball, it's really easy to get some conference tournaments, or just like even preseason tournaments going. Whereas in football, it's like, not saying that in football it requires more stamina or anything like that, but it's usually a longer game, and it's a lot more physical taxing because you're getting hit every single play, almost every single play, depending on the position. So I think that where it's like you're seeing with the NFL extending their season to 17 games, there's a lot of players it almost didn't pass, but a lot of players that are like, okay, I'm like 17 games is a lot. And
I've always said that if the NFL did that, they needed to add another bye week, like make the season 18 weeks and have 2 bye weeks in there.
Which I think that they're planning on. But
it's how I don't understand how they expect the 17. I also don't understand how they're going to schedule it.
But no, and yeah, I think that in college football, it could be a little bit easier because there are a bunch of younger players and they're like, I'm in the prime of my fucking life, let's go. But I think that I really like that idea. Realistically, I don't know, but I love that idea.
I know realistically it probably won't work out, but it's like I genuinely think that if I were a player or if I were a coach, I would rather get the chance to go mano-a-mano with Ohio State again, or get the chance to maybe pull off an upset against a good Penn State team, as opposed to having to play Central Michigan.
Brady, if there's anything this podcast has proven, is that you're usually the odd man out.
Well, I know that I am, but I'm still the host. And I make all the rules, and Skylar's on mute for the rest of the episode. But I think if you're not, I don't think if you do it right, you're not adding any games onto the season, then the teams really already would have played. You give the teams really a chance for recruiting and to increase. So, I mean, I like it. Mitch, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm down for it. I like that kind of style play. I think it can make things more interesting, and I feel like if it goes well, we could see it be a permanent change for how the conference tournament or how the conference playoff or conference championship is played out. I think it would be a huge like boost for college football in general.
I think that we're already like college football used to be 12 games. It's already pretty much expanded to 14. You get this month and a half break from the time your normal season is over before bowl season ever starts. That's just miserable for college football fans. I think this way you can get more regular season football. I think you can eliminate a couple bowl games when you do this. I think it's more interesting for fans. And I think we get to see a lot of those cross divisional matchups that we only see every couple of years, you know? So whatever. It's interesting to me. I don't know if it's going to work or not. But let's move on to our what's list. Now, obviously, we're still looking for names on this, so please email us on this. But the topic of today's list was to name me 5 players who didn't win the Heisman Trophy who deserved to, and name me the Heisman Trophy winner who deserved to win it the least. Now, for the 5 players who deserve to win the Heisman, I'm going to make an important announcement in that we're not saying that the players who did win the Heisman didn't deserve it. We're not saying that these players aren't fantastic football players. We're just saying that either had it been any other year, this player would have won the Heisman. Due to bias, the player that we picked should have won the Heisman, or for any other reason. But the front part, the 5 portion of this list, is not to take away from any actual Heisman Trophy winners. That's saved for the one winner who didn't deserve to win it. So I pose the question, which means Mitch goes first. So Mitch, name me 5 college football players who didn't win the Heisman who deserved to, and name me the winner who is the least deserving.
All right, so I'll go in my reverse order like I've been doing with the list. So at number 5, I have Greg Pruitt. At number 4, I got Marshall Falk. 3, Larry Fitzgerald.
Mitch, can you tell me the position in the college that they played at? Because I don't know who Greg Pruitt is.
Oh, my bad.
You're good.
Hold up.
I have my list. Do you want me to go first while you get that?
No, I got it right.
Okay. I should have told you guys to do that before. Sorry about that, everybody.
God damn it, Brady. We can't all, read your...
All right, so Greg Pruitt was a running back for Oklahoma in 1972. And then, Marshall Falk, running back for San Diego State. Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver for Pitt. And then at number 2, I got Melvin Gordon, running back for Wisconsin. And then number 1, I got Rex Grossman, QB for Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for my player who did not deserve it, I have Mark Ingram Jr., running back for Alabama.
Okay. So who do you think deserved to win it over Mark Ingram?
Toby Gerhart.
Okay, Toby Gerhart.
I have to look at that voting again.
That was a stacked Heisman class, to be honest.
I have to look at that.
So tell me about Greg Pruitt, Mitch. Why is he on your list?
So Greg Pruitt played at Oklahoma, like I said, and during that time, it was like a very segregated conference. But he was able to, become Oklahoma's best player and a prominent player in the Big 8 conference, which was considered the best football conference in the country during the 70s and stuff. So with him to excel in there, and he was able to set records. Like he ranks 3rd in Oklahoma's career all-purpose yards still. And
really?
We're talking about, and this was in the 70s, and he still holds 3rd in there. So I think that's pretty impressive. But yeah, I just think that, he was definitely worthy of winning it for what he accomplished in that era.
So who did win the Heisman that year? Do you know?
The winner that year, Skylar should have known this, is Johnny Rodgers from Nebraska.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Johnny Rodgers, our first Heisman winner.
Skylar, how many Heisman winners has Nebraska actually had?
3. We have Johnny Rodgers in 72. What's his last? Mike Rozier in 86, and then Eric Crouch in 2001.
Okay.
Even though we should have 5, but you know what? We'll take the 3. Actually, 4. We don't count Crouch. We don't like Crouch.
So that is interesting because speaking of Crouch, Mitch says that the guy who one of the guys on the list, his number one guy was
Rex
Rex
Grossman.
Grossman deserved to win it over Eric Crouch.
Well,
I originally had Eric Crouch on my list as the guy who didn't deserve to win it, and then I found someone who was, I think in my mind, less deserving. But do you agree with that, Skyler? Do you think Rex Grossman should have won it over Eric Crouch?
I'd have to look at the voting. I like, as a person that saw Rex Grossman cause a lot of strife in my early childhood, I don't really like Rex Grossman. So it's kind of like, I mean, as a Nebraska fan, I'll take the Heisman from 2001, but Eric Crouch even was like, why did I win this? So I mean, I don't think like Eric Crouch is the most like egregious, shouldn't have won it, because I mean, I'll get to mine.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was more of like, okay, you've done pretty well in college football these last 3 years. You like haven't done bad, and you're on Nebraska, so here you go. I also think they were making up for not giving it to Tommy Frazier.
So let me just read you the statistics here. So both of them were considered system quarterbacks, Nebraska with the triple option offense and Grossman with Steve Spurrier's fun and gun offense. Crouch threw for 1,510 yards while rushing for a career-high 1,115 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns. He also threw 7 touchdowns, but he threw 10 interceptions that season. Yeah. Grossman completed 66% of his passes for 3,896 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, and Grossman was a sophomore that year.
Yeah.
So even though I don't have Grossman or Crouch on my list, I agree with Mitch's pick. I think that's a pretty solid list of picks there.
And you forgot to mention that during that season, he led the nation in passing efficiency, passer completion percentage, and yards per attempt.
No, I think Rex Grossman was a pretty darn good college quarterback. He sucked as a pro quarterback, but he was a pretty good college quarterback.
All right, so Skylar, what's your list?
Okay, I had trouble numbering this just in general. So it really, like, except for my number one. Other than that,
I think for the guys who should have won the Heisman, I don't care about a list for that as long as you've just got the number one guy who didn't deserve to win it.
Okay, well then, in no particular order, Marshall Faulk, running back from San Diego State, Tommy Frazier, quarterback for Nebraska, Marshall Faulk 92, Tommy Frazier 95, Adrian Peterson in his freshman year 2004. Christian McCaffrey in his junior year, 2014, 2015. And then Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver, Pitt. And then my one who didn't deserve to win it, Gino Torretta, quarterback from Miami in 92, did not deserve to win that Heisman.
Okay. I can respect that list.
Let me get to his stats real quick. Because his stats, I'm like, what the fuck? Okay.
You could definitely tell with some of these that there was a big name college bias.
Yeah, Gino Torretta in 92. Threw for 3,000 yards, completed 56% of his passes, 19 touchdowns to 7 interceptions.
That's terrible.
And statistically, his junior year was better. He threw for 30 more yards, 1 more touchdown, but threw 1 more interception. So, like,
that's trash, dude.
Yeah, no, but he won it.
Year for college football.
He won it over Marshall Faulk, who. Let's see.
That's such big college, and see, that's what I hate is that that's such big college bias.
Marshall Faulk, in his junior season at San Diego State, ran for 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, averaged 6.2 yards per carry. Yeah, you can even give it to him in his senior year where he had 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 600 receiving yards. Like, the fact that Marshall Faulk walked out, like, got drafted and wasn't a Heisman winner, like, he's number one on my who should have won it.
Yeah.
But not Tommy Frazier. It's more of like system quarterback because his stats don't really jump out. I think he threw for 1,300 yards and ran for another 600. But Nebraska was beating teams by like an average of 30 points. Like they beat Florida in the national championship game by like 38 points. Like it wasn't even close. And Florida was the number 2 team in the country. Christian McCaffrey, because he had almost 2,700 yards from scrimmage.
He was monstrous
that one year.
at Stanford.
Yeah, like it was insane.
That the year that they beat Iowa in the Rose Bowl? Like they beat Iowa to shit.
It was 2015, I think.
Yeah, that
Let me
sounds about
double
right.
check. Adrian Peterson, because he ran for almost 2,000 yards his freshman year and didn't win the Heisman. That was 2004, which he would have been if he wasn't a freshman, he would have won it hands down. 1,900 yards, should have won it. And then Larry Fitzgerald, 22 touchdowns, 1,600 yards as a wide receiver. Wide receiver bias in college for the Heisman is just insane. Deserves a lot. I think there's some wide receivers that deserve to win it.
All right. So I kind of agree with both your guys' list. Like you guys made really good points here. So my list, number 5, I have Ndamukong Suh, defensive tackle out of Nebraska, 2009. Truly because the dude was a force. The dude, and Skyler even said it, I think, in a previous episode. He almost single-handedly won Nebraska the Big 12 championship game to keep Texas out of the national championship.
The fact that Colt McCoy placed higher than him in the voting is fucking bullshit.
He
sacked him 4.5 times.
He was a monstrous player. Number 4, Vince Young, 2005. Eventual winner was Reggie Bush. This one was a toss-up for me. But what I like about Vince Young was that Vince Young was the first quarterback in Division I history to throw for 3,000 yards and rush for 1,000 yards in a season. I love Reggie Bush. Vince Young ultimately got the last laugh, winning the national championship over USC, but I've always thought Vince Young deserved that Heisman. Number 3, 1997, Randy Moss over Charles Woodson. Randy Moss played at Marshall and averaged 168 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns a game. He just averaged that at Marshall. And you could say, yeah, it was Marshall. But those statistics are fantastic one way or another. Number 2, he could either have won this in 98 or 99. Orlando Pace, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. I don't think offensive linemen get enough love. Orlando Pace was dominant his freshman year, his sophomore year, his junior year, his senior year. I think they said he gave up a total of 1.5 sacks all 4 seasons he was at Ohio State. And you saw it carry over into the NFL with his fantastic career that he had. And number 1 for me, Tommy Frazier, quarterback out of Nebraska. Tommy Frazier, he was a catalyst for a great 90s Nebraska team, set of teams. He led the Huskers to three national championship games. I think they won 2 of them. The only reason they lost the other one was a missed field goal. At his time in Nebraska, he set the school records for career passing touchdowns, career total offense, and rushing touchdowns, and he was not sacked once in the entire 1995 college football campaign. Not sacked once.
Only lost 3 games ever as a starter at Nebraska.
Yep.
And he did it, and remind you, he did it all with blood clots.
He did.
He had blood clots. That's the only reason he didn't play in the NFL is because he had blood clots.
He was a fantastic player. Eventual winner that year was Eddie George. I'm not going to take anything away from Eddie George. And then the one player who didn't deserve to win it but did was Jason White, quarterback out of Oklahoma.
That's another one.
Jason White. This is why I hate the Heisman, because the Heisman gives this trophy out before the bowl games, and I hate this. In his last regular season game, Oklahoma, who was previously undefeated, played Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. Kansas State, who had 3 losses that season, they walked in 10-3 or 9-3 into that game.
That was in 2001, right?
This was 2003.
Ah, fuck. Okay, yeah.
This was the 2003 going into 2004, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They lost to Kansas State 35-7, where White went 27 of 50, 298 yards, 2 interceptions. They then somehow pole vault a few teams to get into the national championship, where they lose to LSU. Nick Saban led LSU. His stats in that game, 13 of 37, 102 yards and 2 interceptions. So in the 2 biggest games of his career, he goes a combined 40 of 87 for 46% completion rating, 400 yards even, and 4 interceptions. And you're fucking telling me that guy deserved to win the Heisman over Larry Fitzgerald that year? Fucking ridiculous. Absolutely fucking. And you could even make the argument that Eli Manning deserved to win it that year as well. But because Eli Manning, I think Eli Manning finished 3rd that year in Heisman voting. He threw 29 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in a much more difficult SEC conference. Because Jason White, to me, in conjunction also with Eric Crouch, but Eric Crouch is more of a runner than a passer, Jason White led the way for the Big 12 having the stigma of not being able to produce quarterbacks. that has only just recently been broken with guys like Pat Mahomes, because it was Graham Harrell was supposed to be the next big thing. Didn't pan out, right? Even Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be the next big thing. Didn't pan out. You could argue Vince Young didn't pan out in the NFL. We can talk about Colt McCoy. Didn't pan out in the NFL. We can talk about not Johnny Manziel. Well, Johnny Manziel because Texas A&M was previously Big 12, but the list goes on and on and on about Big 12 quarterbacks who couldn't do shit.
It's taking Pat Mahomes. If he plays to the level we're expecting, Baker Mayfield,
Kyler Murray.
There's another one.
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is. I think he can do well at Philly. If Carson Wentz gets hurt, but yeah, it's gonna take those 4 quarterbacks. And what's in common with 3 of them? They're transfers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Kyler Murray was he a transfer?
He was a transfer. He was originally at Texas A&M.
Yeah, like it takes 3 of them transfers out. They all except for Baker. He was at Texas Tech and then transferred.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree.
Pat Mahomes was the only one who didn't transfer.
Yeah. So I would just I agree. I don't like that idea. It's like being a former Big 12 being raised in the Big 12, we had amazing players.
But your secondaries were always god awful.
I would argue the 2009 Nebraska secondary was amazing because we picked off Colt McCoy 3 times in that Big 12.
As a whole, the conference's
secondaries
secondaries allow for any quarterback to throw for 40 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. And
you could do that.
I feel like I could probably do that. I mean, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but Brock Purdy has issues. But he looks like the golden child of the Big 12 because he plays in the Big 12.
Well, he's also and I feel like Brock Purdy's an underrated quarterback in my opinion. And I think that if he goes to the right team, he can be a successful NFL quarterback because he's an improviser. But I agree. I think he is definitely a work in progress. Like early second round at the highest, depending on what the season brings him. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Compared to last year's quarterback draft, oh god, he's so much better than them all.
Yeah.
Except for Tua and Burrow, in my opinion.
Well, so that brings us to another thing that we wanted to bring up, which was Madden dropping the NFL rating for the rookie quarterbacks. Not surprisingly, Joe Burrow, I think, got 75. Tua Tagovailoa got 72. But in third place, 71 overall, Jordan Love, Green Bay. Ahead of, at 70 overall, the guy we're going to talk about today, Justin Herbert. And then I think Jalen Hurts was at 68. And then after that, the list is pretty much nobody. But I was astonished to see Jordan Love actually ahead of Justin Herbert because I didn't think that the hate for Justin Herbert was solely on me. I thought that it was – that time it was Olive. The door opened.
Okay.
That time it was Olive. Because I heard her jingling. I saw the door, but I heard her jingling. I didn't think that Jordan Love would be higher than Justin Herbert because I thought that the hate for Justin Herbert was left solely for my household.
Oh, no, there's a lot of people that don't like Justin Herbert, including Todd McShay. Todd McShay did not think that Justin Herbert should have been drafted 6 overall, and I agree with him. No, PFF absolutely hates Justin Herbert, too. Like, Pro Football Focus, they were like, he's not a good quarterback.
No, he's not.
Let's get more into Los Angeles, and then we can really bash them.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers last year, coming off of a 12-4 season in which they won a playoff game, a wild card game against a very young Lamar Jackson Ravens team, and then got absolutely bucked by the Patriots in the divisional round at home. Follow up in what would be Phillip Rivers' final season in Los Angeles with a 5-11 season where they finished 0-6. In division. As I stated, they lost 8 games within 7 points, within 1 score. So you could argue this was a better team. Notable free agent losses, some of them we've talked about. Phillip Rivers, QB to Indianapolis. Thomas Davis, linebacker to the Redskins to go rejoin Ron Rivera. Melvin Gordon, halfback to Denver, who we talked about. Michael Schofield, right guard to Carolina and part of a trade. And Derek Watt, fullback to Pittsburgh. And then their big free agent pickups, this is just to name a few. Linval Joseph, defensive tackle from Minnesota. Chris Harris Jr., corner from Denver. Brian Balaga, right tackle from Green Bay. Nick Vigil, linebacker from Cincinnati. And in the trade for Schofield, Trey Turner, right guard from Carolina. So what do you guys make before you get to what you make of their season, where do you guys rank the Chargers? In or in need of a rebuild, in or in need of a reload, 8-8 playoff tier, Super Bowl tier, and then tell me what you think of their offseason.
I would say they're 8-8 right now. I just think with the uncertainty at the quarterback position, it really holds the team back from achieving any higher from that, because I feel like the defense and the weapons they have on offense is vaulting them up to that 8-8 tier. But the quarterback position and how the offensive line is going to play is halting their progress. So I got them there. But for their gains or their losses, I don't think they lost too much that's going to affect them. I think the only ones that could hurt them are, Watt and Gordon, just because of what it could do to the running game. But it seems like they got it set with Eckler, so it won't hurt too bad. Jatavius Brown hurts their linebacking depth. But outside of that, I think they can survive those losses. And so I would give it like a B. And then for gains, I think they hit it out of the park, to be honest. I'll give them an A. I really liked all their picks, especially the 2 linemen they got, Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga. I mean, when those two guys are like on, they're on. I think it's gonna vault their O-line, like shoot them right up. So I think those were the 2 biggest gets of their whole offseason. And Chris Harris Jr. is a nice addition to the secondary. So yeah, losses B and gains an A.
Yeah, I think the loss of Phillip Rivers could actually really affect this team, because I think that even though he was old and didn't do really well, if Phillip Rivers is with this team, I think this team is an 8-8 almost playoff team, because I think that their offensive line's better, and that was really the thing keeping them from winning those games. Like you said, Brady. I agree. I think Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga were good pickups. Like Mitch said, if they're on, they're some of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. But the problem is that they're not always on. Sometimes that they have some struggles. So I think that hurts them a little bit. Chris Harris Jr. I think was a good pickup. I still don't know why. I think Denver letting him go was a mistake, but that's just my opinion. I think keeping Hunter Henry was also really important. Like franchise tagging him was an important.
Remember, he hasn't signed his franchise tag yet, so they franchise tagged him, but there's stuff in the works as to whether or not he may even play.
Which is true, but I think that the effort, at least to get him, to keep him, when he was looked at as one of the better tight ends that could be leaving, the fact that they were like, no, this is a priority for us, I think is good for them. So I have to give it a B+. Like entire offseason B+, because I think that the losses, they were expecting those, and they did an okay job trying to fix those, or they had things in place already.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give their whole offseason between losses and gains probably an A, because what the Chargers did that I really like was that pretty much every position where they lost someone, either they filled it or people are already comfortable with what they have. Like they lost Melvin Gordon, but I'm comfortable with Austin Eckler. Like he's a good halfback. Me and Mitch even talked about when the Schofield for Turner trade happened. We're like, this is the dumbest trade we've seen in our life. Like the Chargers got a steal in that trade.
And then Arizona.
On top of it, they add Brian Bulaga. Well, yeah, exactly right. And then on top of it, they add Brian Bulaga. There's issues. So here's my thing, is that Michael Schofield, even though he was a little bit older, started every game of the last 2 seasons with the Chargers. Trey Turner has missed 9 games over the last 3 seasons. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when the Chargers already sort of have a patchwork offensive line, that can hurt. And Bulaga only averages about 12 games a season as is. So hopefully if Bulaga's out, Turner's there. But if you then run the risk of losing those key pieces for multiple weeks, and that can really hurt this team. And unfortunately, this team didn't address that in the draft like I think they should have. What I really loved was that they lost Thomas Davis, but they replaced him with Nick Vigil. And if you look at the statistics, they're actually almost the same. Vigil had 1 fewer tackle than Thomas Davis did. They had the same amount of sacks. Vigil had more passes defensed. Vigil also had 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and an interception. Thomas Davis didn't have any of that. So they got a younger upgrade at the inside linebacker position to go in conjunction with who they drafted, who we'll get to here in a moment. Chris Harris Jr., I love it. I already thought the Chargers had a great corner in Desmond King as well as Casey Hayward. And then I think throwing Chris Harris Jr. as sort of a nickel, or even allowing some of those other guys to play nickel, just is great. To go with hopefully fully healthy Derwin James. Like their offseason is probably the best the Chargers have had in maybe ever, frankly. It's great. Like, I like looking at this, and I don't have as much of an issue with the Phillip Rivers leaving because I understand the points that they were making. I just don't subscribe to the theory that it was all Phillip Rivers' fault. But I can understand it. He was the catalyst there for 16 years, and for 16 years they didn't do much. So I understand it. So let's move into their draft. Chargers had 6 picks. I hate saying this. Round 1, pick number 6 overall, Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon. They then traded up into the first round again to draft Kenneth Murray, linebacker out of Oklahoma. They then don't have any second or third round picks. So in the 4th round, they go with Joshua Kelly, running back out of UCLA. 5th round, they go Joe Reed, wide receiver out of Virginia. 6th round, they go Alohi Gilman, safety out of Notre Dame. And 7th round, they go KJ Hill, wide receiver out of Ohio State. So who kind of stands out within that draft for you guys?
To me, it's got to be Kenneth Murray, man. I mean, it might
You
be
were high
just
on him.
yeah, I was super high on him. I wanted him to come to Green Bay. I was so fucking pissed when he went to the Chargers. I'm so tempted to give the Chargers an F for the draft grade just because of that, but I'm not going to be petty like that. But yeah, Kenneth Murray, I think, can be a difference maker at the inside linebacker position, and that's been a weakness for a couple of years for the Chargers. So they got a really great guy, and just imagine a defense with Kenneth Murray in the middle, and then on the back end you got Derwin James. I think that's that. I wish I had that on my defense. So
And
I think
solid at the corner position and good pass rush too.
yeah. And so I think it's got to be Kenneth Murray. He's the highlight of this draft class.
For me, I'm actually going to go late round. I'm going to go KJ Hill, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think that I was surprised he was a 7th round pick because I think he got overshadowed by some like good wide receivers on that team, and he didn't have the best season in general. But I mean, he was still a really good player, and he did amazing in the Senior Bowl. He had some dropping issues, which I know was that was a problem for him. But I think that getting him into that system, having him learn under some of the wide receivers that they have right now, I think that he could, giving him a year to learn, I think he can do a lot. I think that he's a sleeper pick that they needed to get. I think Kenneth Murray, I'm always, like we were talking about with Big Ten or with Big 12 defensive backs, I think the same, you could say the same thing about some Big 10 linebackers. I think it's wait and see. It's wait and see. Big 12 linebackers, thank you. I mean, I will say Kenneth Murray was the catalyst of a better Oklahoma defense this last year. It wasn't the best Oklahoma defense, but it was a better Oklahoma defense. And I'm excited. I want to see what he does. I want him to do well. But I think I still have to wait and see for him. I'm also kind of mad because that was the Patriots pick, and they drafted it, and I wanted them to get a linebacker, and they drafted out of the first round.
Yeah, but Nike the dog just has
Nike the fucking dog, best GM,
trades.
best GM, making money moves since 2001.
So Skylar, what did you grade their draft?
I gave it a C.
You gave it a C, Mitch. What did you say?
I was going to give it a higher grade, but you brought up the point that they did not address the offensive line. So I got to give it a C+, just because they drafted Justin Herbert as their quarterback. Yeah. And I think we all are in agreement that I don't think he's the right guy or the fit for this team. And then they're just reluctant to draft the O-line when they have to know that's their biggest weakness. But I think the rest of the players after Herbert really bump it up. So the best I can give them is like a C+.
C for me, because I think that there's some question marks with Kenneth Murray.
You can't lay down there. That's a power bomb.
I mean, with some of Joe Reed and Joshua Kelly, I also think there's some question marks. I think they're good players. They're a little bit faster, but still. And then I agree. Justin Herbert was a trash pick. I saw something about them drafting up, trading with Detroit and getting Jeffrey Okudah. Can you imagine Jeffrey Okudah on that defensive backfield? That would be fucking amazing.
That would be something.
That would have been great. I didn't do it, so gotta give it. I have to give it a C because there's just too many questions for some of these players. So, what about you, Brady?
Yeah, I actually give it a B, and the thing is I like 4 of their 6 picks. I really like. I like Kenneth Murray. I have some issues with him. Remember, he had to sit out the college football semifinal game because of conduct detrimental to the team. And that was a massive loss for Oklahoma. And that's a red flag to me, especially going to a system like the Chargers. I love the Joshua Kelly pick. I thought that he played really well in the Chip Kelly offense. I think that while Austin Eckler is a good halfback, I think there's a need for that halfback 2 position there in the chart with the Chargers, and I think that Joshua Kelly is going to be able to battle Justin Jackson for that. I love the Joe Reed pick from Virginia, the wide receiver. This was a guy who, in his first 3 seasons at Virginia, had a total of 52 tackles and 52 receptions and 9 touchdowns. In his senior season at in his senior season at Virginia, he had 77 catches and 7 touchdowns. So in one season at Virginia, he almost doubled all of his stats, tripled all of his stats. He did a really good job, as well as in his sophomore year, he had 112 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So he's got that kind of versatility that you really need from the wide receiver position, because that's a point of contention for me with the Chargers. I love Keenan Allen, and then there's a toss-up with some of those other wide receiver positions. Even though I like Mike Williams and stuff like that, I don't know if he's the true answer. Alohi Gilman, I don't care too much for. But then, yeah, to Skyler's point, I love KJ Hill. I think that if this wasn't such a wide receiver heavy draft, he probably would have been a mid 3 to mid 4 pick in any other draft. But because it was so wide receiver heavy, he ended up sliding to the 7th round when teams maybe didn't necessarily need or weren't as needy for wide receivers. So let's talk about all of our opinions on Justin Herbert, because we've touched on it, but we haven't gone in depth. So why does everyone on this podcast hate Justin Herbert?
I guess I'll go. So I don't know a lot about Justin Herbert. But when I watched from the Rose Bowl, I just really wasn't impressed. I don't think he has the passing ability to succeed in the NFL. And the only reason they were so successful is because Justin Herbert could run on us. So I don't know. I just don't think he has all the tools to be like, the next Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or whatever. I just think he's a really overhyped guy.
Yeah, I mean, just like I had to go back and look at his stats a little. I mean, like this season, like in general, wasn't bad for him. Like he threw for 3,500 yards. He completed 66% of his passes. Had a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Normally, that's really good, but then lost to an Auburn team with a true freshman at quarterback that really didn't do anything until the last drive.
Yeah.
Like that should have been Oregon's game to win, like hands down. And you can't help but look at Justin Herbert and his inability to run that offense for them to win that game. Wisconsin, another one. Like I think that Oregon should have won by more. Wait, one sec. Yeah, Oregon won that game, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
They did 28 to 27 or something.
Yeah,
they should have won by more. Like, I'm sorry, Wisconsin fans, but he should have won by more. Like,
No, you're right.
but he didn't.
Nope.
But like normally there is that, but the ability to win games and the ability to like lead the team and that. And the season we were all hyping him up on his junior year, we were like, this guy could be the number 1 overall pick. Didn't complete 60% of his passes. Like statistically, it was just a worse year. Like his freshman year was almost better in terms of like just playing as a better quarterback. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just like I feel like he's been overhyped since his freshman year. And I think that it's never really paid off for Oregon. Because if he was like the way that they were talking about it, Oregon should have been in contention for Pac-12 championship. And
Well, they did win the Pac-12.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking like every year. And like college football playoff bound.
Yeah,
every
natty
year.
Appearance.
Yeah, like at least an appearance. But I mean, he didn't amount to it. I mean, you know what? Maybe he can do good with Los Angeles, but I have no idea. What about you, Brady? Why do you hate him?
So my thing is like I did watch a lot of Pac-12 football because it was up late night, and that was usually when I was getting done with work and stuff. And I've watched Justin Herbert for a couple of seasons at Oregon. Now, this was a guy who, up until the junior year, was like walked into camp consistently like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart. And I like him because he battled his way into the starting position. But Justin Herbert benefited from Mario Cristobal at Oregon building maybe one of the best recruited teams college football has seen in a very long time. We're talking about consistent number 1 recruits like Kayvon Thibodeau being there. Justin Herbert benefited from having a lot of talent around him.
Especially on that offensive line.
On that offensive line. My issue with Justin Herbert was that even though statistically his statistics look okay, if you watch the game film, there's no consistent growth. The same mistakes he made his senior year or the same mistakes he made his freshman year, he's making his senior year. I can't even say he struggles to put the ball in tight positions because he doesn't even throw it in tight positions typically. He's really inconsistent with his passing, especially the short and the medium gains. He really only throws the long ball if the guy is absolutely wide open. He doesn't attempt to I don't like his arm strength. I don't like his arm talent. He's mobile, which is great, but I think he relies on that way too much. And I go back to the 3 big games that I watch, and they actually ended up all being losses or 2 of them ended up being losses for Oregon. The first one is the Auburn game. He went 28 of 37, 242 yards, 1 touchdown. But those 9 incompletions, some of them were pretty ugly, and he was getting stonewalled a lot. And then after that, Oregon looked absolutely hot. They walked into Sun Devil Stadium to play the Sun Devils, ranked number 6 in the nation, and lost. And he went 20 of 36, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Arizona State is an up-and-coming program, but they're not a great program, and they made Justin Herbert look just weak, plain out. And then you look at Wisconsin, and Wisconsin was a defense that got burned through the air. Like, just look at
Nebraska burned you through the air.
Look at the 2 games at Ohio State. Just look at it statistically. The pass rush was there, but defensively they weren't great through the air. And Herbert goes 14 of 20 for 130 yards and an interception. Yeah, he ran 3 touchdowns, and that's great, and that was a huge reason that they won that game. But when it came to primetime opponents, when it came to him really, really just laying it all out on the line, he didn't step up. And that's why I have an issue with him. And I don't really think the Chargers needed to draft a quarterback. Like, had the Chargers drafted Kenneth Murray at 6 overall, kept their 2nd and 3rd round pick, and then drafted offensive linemen, I would give this team's entire offseason an absolute A+. And I'd say the Chargers look well on their way to the next couple of steps.
But
they didn't, and I don't like it.
Well, even if they took Tristan Wirf or Trent Wirfs or some offensive lineman with that 6th overall pick,
and then traded up to get Kenneth Murray,
or anything like that, or even in the 4th round instead of getting Joshua Kelly, or the 5th round instead of getting Joe Reed, getting up Jacob Eason or Jake Fromm, getting a quarterback that those 2 quarterbacks we all kind of agreed they weren't the best quarterbacks in the class, but they had the potential to be starting caliber if they could make it. And even then, if you just have Tyrod Taylor be a bridge quarterback until next year, and if you do bad enough, you get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. It's just kind of yeah, I agree with you, Brady. I think that this Chargers team can do so much better if they have a good.
It truly seemed like a forced pick. It seemed like that was a pick that came down from management, because all I heard from Chargers camp was how high they were on Tyrod Taylor and how high they were on Easton Stick as well, the other backup that they have from North Dakota State. They were really high on both of them, and then they go and they do this, and I don't understand it.
I don't get it either. I think that it was just kind of Los Angeles has the Chargers have struggled to get people in Los Angeles excited about the Chargers being there, and they have since they've moved. And I think that this was just some kind of, I think it's almost fan service, and I hate to say it.
I do too, a little bit.
But I think it was just kind of look at us. We got the starting fucking quarter. We got this guy from Oregon who you guys all know because you're in Pac-12 country, and he won the Rose Bowl here just this last year. And look at this exciting young quarterback we have. Because they saw what that did for even with the Rams, it wasn't like they had Jared Goff wasn't amazing, but he was serviceable. He was a game manager. He was doing pretty well. I mean, I can still argue that he's doing okay. Even last year with the drop off, he still did okay. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this Chargers team, and I think that it rides or dies with the quarterback. And I'm sorry, I have to agree with you, Brady. I don't think Justin Herbert has the killer instinct that he needs to succeed in the NFL.
If I'm going to take a number 6 overall pick, I'm not picking someone so developmental. And Justin Herbert is going to be developmental. And his career is either going to get ruined because the Chargers are going to try to play him too early, and he's going to realize he's not NFL caliber at this moment, or his career is going to get ruined by getting hurt because even though the Chargers improved on their offensive line, there's still questions on it. So let's move into their schedule here. We're really rapid firing through this episode. I love it.
Yeah.
So again, Chargers last season went 5-11, finished last in the AFC West, and did not win a single division game. We've talked about them a couple times in regards to all the other AFC West episodes, about the Carolina episode, the Atlanta episode, the Buffalo episode, a bunch of others. So go back, listen to all those. Week 1, they go to Cincinnati. This was a point of contention in the Cincinnati episode that we talked about, but I have them losing this game. And I have them losing this game because I think Cincinnati is an up-and-coming team. I think I like Cincinnati's defense against whoever the quarterback is with the Chargers more than I like the Chargers defense against Joe Burrow. Because if Joe Burrow is getting a healthy Tyler Boyd and a healthy A.J. Green and a healthy Joe Mixon and a healthy offensive line, Cincinnati looks good on paper. So while I don't have the Bengals doing well, I have them coming out with a win against the Chargers. So the Chargers start out 0-1. And I think Skyler agreed with me on that pick too.
I think I did too.
Mitch looks like he's about to call.
All right, you just go, Skyler. Since you're going to agree, just go.
Okay. No, I agree. I think that Cincinnati as a team, I mean, people know I love Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati is great. I think that the one thing that could make them lose this game is the defense of Los Angeles. But I have to just go to Joe Burrow's college stats, and I know it's in college, it's not the pros, but he was facing some of the best defensive lines in college. He was facing some of the best linebacking core, the defensive back core in college, and he threw 17 touchdowns to 1 interception when he was under pressure. I have to give that win to Joe Burrow in Cincinnati.
All right, time to bring some sense in this podcast. So, the Chargers are going to win this one, and for a couple of reasons. One, Joe Burrow, to me, was a one-year wonder. This is going to be his first game, so he's a rookie going against a really talented defense. So I'm not expecting big things out of Joe Burrow in his first game. Second, I think it comes all down to line play. I think the Chargers have a vastly superior offensive line compared to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think the Chargers have a better defensive line than the Cincinnati Bengals as well. I don't know how you guys really think the Cincinnati O-line is going to hold back Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. I'm just baffled by that. And I just think that the Chargers have the defense to hold a rookie quarterback's offense than Joe Burrow. And I don't know. I like the weapons a little bit more what the Chargers have to offer, even though it may be Justin Herbert, but from what it looks like it's probably going to be. So Tyrod Taylor, who's a veteran quarterback for how many years in the NFL. So I'll take that at the quarterback position over a one-year wonder rookie.
Okay. I got one thing to say to you. Just one thing. That Cincinnati defensive line is not shit. It's actually a really good defensive line. And it got better this last year. We're talking about their 4 leading sackers are back, I believe. Carlos Dunlap had 9 sacks last year. Sam Hubbard had 8.5 sacks last year. Carl Lawson had 5 sacks last year. And Geno Atkins had 4.5 sacks last year. Okay, this the best part of that Cincinnati team was their defensive line, and it got better.
And you also have to remember that the Bengals' first-round pick at the offensive line,
Jonah Williams
was hurt last season. Yeah, Jonah Williams. So he hasn't had the chance to play, and he's a really good player. And so I respect your decision, Mitch. It's your choice. It's your schedule as to how you do it. Week 2 matchup, they then play home to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is an absolute loss. The Chiefs are just a far superior team to the Chargers, and I have the Chiefs winning this game easily to start the season out.
Oh, good. We can finally agree on something. Yes.
Oh, actually, you know what? I changed my pick. The Chargers.
So I also think the Chargers are going to lose this game, even though I think they have the defense to keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think that either whoever's playing Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert's going to keep this team from winning. So go Chiefs.
Since this is our last AFC West team, every time we come up to an AFC West team, I'm just going to refer it back to the last episode. Kansas City wins.
Bit of a rationale, though. Just give us a
Kansas City wins because Patrick Mahomes is the starting quarterback. There you go.
That's an easy enough rationale, Frank. All right, so week 3 matchup, they then host the Carolina Panthers. I have them losing this game. There's not much of a rationale. This was really just a gut decision. I think Teddy Bridgewater is good enough to get this Carolina team a couple of wins. When I looked through their schedule, this was a game that I felt had the opportunity to. I love the Chargers defense, but what we haven't seen from the Chargers defense is them play fully cohesive. And I think with this offseason, that's going to hurt them to start the season out. And I think even though they shouldn't lose this game, I think they do lose to Carolina.
I really hate your picks. I have the Chargers winning this one just because I think, when we're looking at the Panthers offense versus the Chargers defense, right now the Panthers offense really is Christian McCaffrey, and I suspect that's how who the offense is going to run through. And when you have to face a Chargers defense with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram coming off the edge, Kenneth Murray in the middle, and then you got Derwin James, Chris Harris Jr., Casey Hayward, Desmond King in the secondary. I don't know how you're going to have a Teddy Bridgewater, Christian McCaffrey, and not really much at the wide receiver position score some points and win. So our Chargers win.
I kind of have to agree with Mitch on this one. I think that the Chargers win because Carolina doesn't have enough weapons. Honestly, I think that it's a close game. I think it's a defensive game. But I have to give it to Los Angeles.
All right, so then week 4 matchup, they then go to Tampa Bay. Same rationale for me in the game against Kansas City. They lose this, and I have the Chargers starting out a miserable 0-4.
Yeah, I have the Chargers losing this as well. I just think with, Tom Brady with those kind of weapons and, not one of his greatest defenses, but a solid enough defense, and you have Bruce Arians as your coach, I just think that's a really tough combination to beat. And, the Chargers have the potential to be a great team like that, but they have question marks that are holding them back right now. And so Tampa Bay will win pretty considerably.
Vontae David picked 6 in the third quarter, in the beginning of the third quarter to seal it. I'm just like, no, Tampa Bay wins. Tampa Bay wins because Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. All right, so then at the quarter mark of the season, Mitch, you have them at 2-2. Skyler at 1-3. I have them at 0-4, and I have them continuing to lose as the Week 5 matchup. They then go to New Orleans. I think Drew Brees has a field day against his old team. I think that even though I do like the Chargers defense in this matchup, but I like Drew Brees' offense against the Chargers defense more than I like the Chargers offense against the Saints defense. I think the Saints defense took a step back. I expect this to be a higher scoring, closer game than some of their other ones, but I'm going to give my nod to the Saints on this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have the Saints beating the Chargers. Even though the Saints do have the worst defense, I just think that the Saints offense with Drew Brees at the helm is more versatile and more potent. And I think that's really going to be the deciding factor in this game.
Yeah, I think this game lines up a lot like Tampa Bay, where it's like even though the defense isn't good, it's serviceable, and the quarterback is experienced and has a plethora of weapons around him to use to just like slowly take apart this Los Angeles defense. So I have to give it to New Orleans.
Yeah, although I think Michael Thomas versus whoever ends up covering him, whether it's Desmond King or it's Chris Harris Jr. or whoever it is that's
going to be fun to watch.
I think it's going to be
a battle.
Matchup. Even if it's Casey Hayward who ends up, I think it's going to be a great matchup to watch.
Also, their tight end against Jared Cook against whoever they have to.
Well, yeah, whether it's Kenneth Murray or it's Nick Vigil, or even if it's a guy like Drew Tranquill, who I think had a sneaky good season for the Chargers last year, is going to be interesting. So Week 6 matchup, they then host the New York Jets. I finally have the Chargers winning a game. In this matchup, I like the Chargers defense. I think that they just live in the backfield. I think Sam Darnold conveniently gets another contagious disease before the start of this game. And the Jets lose. Chargers get their first pick up their first win of the season in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Chargers are going to win this one. I think they're a vastly superior team. And I think this will be a game for you, Brady, that shows that what the Chargers defense looks like when they're cohesive. Because I think that, the front line is going to be good, the linebacking core is going to be good, and the secondary is going to be good, and they're all going to be working together. And I think it's going to show how terrifying it could be to play against that defense.
And I agree. I just think the Chargers have such a brutal start to the schedule. Like, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans within the first 5 weeks is brutal for a defense that's bringing in a lot of key guys. And so I agree that I think that this defense
no doubt.
I think this is the game where the defense is going to be like, oh, fuck, we're good.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say. Like, I totally agree with you. It's a brutal stretch to start off with, but I think this game could be, like you said, the game where we could see what this defense looks like when they're all playing together.
I just feel so attacked, Mitch. Skyler, who you got winning?
I got people know my thoughts on the Jets. I have Los Angeles winning. I think Justin Herbert looks across the field to the other sideline and sees Sam Darnold and go, God, I hope I don't end up like him. Because I think that's what happens if you get a good enough quarterback that isn't allowed time to develop and not put in the right system, is you get Sam Darnold. That's what I'll say.
Alrighty, so then a Week 7 matchup, they go to Miami to play the Dolphins. I have the Chargers picking up their second win in a row here. I think, again, this is almost a similar matchup to the Jets, where Miami, to me, has improved, especially defensively, but there's questions on the offensive side, especially on the offensive line, the weapons surrounding Tua or Ryan Fitzpatrick, as well as the run game. I think the Chargers, again, live in the backfield here. I think they end up tearing whoever the quarterback is a new rear end, and Chargers get their second win of the season here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Chargers will beat the Dolphins. I'm going to kind of use the rationale that we've been using for the Chargers, just with the inexperience and the not really good picks at quarterback, and I'll use that with the Dolphins because I don't trust Ryan Fitzpatrick or Tua offense to go against this kind of defense. So I think that's going to be like the biggest factor for the Chargers win.
1 sec, I have to look something up just real quick.
How bad the Dolphins are?
I might actually. I'll give you my pick. I have Miami winning this game. And I have Miami winning this game because somehow last year they won 5 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starting quarterback. I don't know how the fuck they won 5 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starting quarterback.
Well, they got to play the Jets twice.
But
so there's 2.
There's 2, but still the way that they
said against New England.
Yeah, and they pulled in a fucking game. God damn it. Okay, but like what I'll say is that as much as I don't like other AFC East teams, I'm a strong believer in Fitzmagic. And I think that having experience at the quarterback position matters. And I think Fitzpatrick, if there's anything he has, it's experience at the quarterback position. I don't think it's going to be a good game, but I think it's going to be a game where Ryan Fitzpatrick does just enough to win that game. And I think, or if Tua's in there, I think Tua can win the game too. I think that Chargers defense is good, scary good. But I think they have some slip-ups throughout the season. And like we said, like there's times where they're not meshing like they should be. And I think that underneath that Miami heat, I think that this could be a game where they mess up.
All right.
Very bold.
Week 8 matchup. They host the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a game that in the Jaguars episode we pissed Mitch off really bad about because I picked the Jaguars. I think Gardner Minshew is good enough to pull out just a few wins. I know Mitch has the Jaguars being 0-16, so we're not even going to get to his rationale on this. But I have the Jaguars winning this game that just feels like one of those games where I like the direction the Chargers are going, but I think they need another season. And this is going to be one of those games that proves that they need another season. Jacksonville wins, Chargers lose.
I agree. I mean, Brady, I think me and you agreed on every single game in Jacksonville schedule.
We did.
So we did. And very similar rationale. Minshew is good enough. I can't remember fucking names. Minshew's good enough to win at least 3 games. And he wins a game here because, I mean, if you look at the game against, who was it? I think it was San Francisco. Denver last year, where Jacksonville played Denver. And for some reason, they couldn't sack Gardner Minshew, no matter what he did. I think it's very similar. I think that Gardner Minshew's elusiveness is just good enough, and he's got some good young weapons that he can use to win that game because we know San Diego. I did the first one. I got the first San Diego. Los Angeles' offense lives or dies by that quarterback position. I still don't think they have it together yet.
Yeah. All right, so then at the halfway point of the season, Mitch, you have the Chargers sitting at 5-3 and winners of 3 in a row. I have the Chargers sitting at 2-6, and Skylar also has the Chargers sitting at 2-6. Week 9, they then get a home game against the Raiders. I have them losing this. I have them being clean swept by the Raiders. I like what the Raiders bring to the table. I think the Raiders have a pretty good offensive line. They're going to keep Derek Carr healthy, and they're going to keep him upright. I like some of the weapons that the Raiders are bringing in. I like that they're going to get a fully formed defense there. I like what the Raiders bring in this matchup, and I have the Raiders beating the Chargers.
All right, I have the Chargers beating the Raiders, and for my rationale, go look at our Raiders podcast.
I have the Raiders winning this game. For our rationale, go look at our Raiders episode.
You guys suck. Week 11 matchup, they then go to Denver. I have them losing this game. Even though I like this is another game where the Chargers defense is going to get tested, but I like the Chargers defense. The thing is, though, is that I like Denver's defense against the Chargers offense a lot more. I think with all the weapons Drew Lock is going to have, including Melvin Gordon, who I think is going to have a revenge game here, I think that it's going to be a low-scoring game. This is going to be a 20-17 or a 17-14 ball game, but I'm going to nod my cap to the Broncos and say that the Chargers lose for what would be their third straight game.
Yeah, I have the Broncos winning this game. I just think that the Broncos are a really more complete team. I really like that defense, and I feel like their offense is more cohesive. And even though Drew Lock is going into his second year, I think, at least me and Brady are expecting him to take a really good step or two forward. And I think, he'll outperform Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor. So that's why the Broncos win.
Yeah, I'm not as high on Drew Lock taking a step forward this season. I think I mentioned that in the Denver episode. But I do think that the young weapons he's got, KJ Hamler, getting what wide receiver?
Jerry Jeudy,
the other one. Yeah, I think that those guys
are already there.
Yeah, I think that they have enough weapons on the offense to do just enough. I do think that this Los Angeles defense makes Drew Lock look like a young quarterback, though. I think that he makes some mistakes that keeps Los Angeles in it, but I think Denver pulls it out.
Alrighty, so that's the first time we've all agreed on a pick here since the Week 6 matchup against the Jets. All right, so then Week 12 they go to Buffalo. This is a game, again, I have the Chargers losing. To me, this is their fourth straight loss, and at this point they're a 2-10 football team. 2-9 football team for me right now. Buffalo's defense is so good, and I think Josh Allen's going to do just enough at the quarterback position. I think this is going to be a run-heavy game for the Bills, but I think the Bills' defense is going to outscore the Bills' offense in this game, and I think defensively they're just going to pick off and demolish whoever is at quarterback for the Chargers. Bills win this game.
Yeah, I have the Bills winning this as well. I won't go into detail because it's basically the same rationale as you, but Bills have an overwhelming defense, and I think Josh Allen will be a game manager, serve a Postal Bowl.
I don't think I'd ever use the word game manager to describe Josh Allen as a quarterback. I don't think the Buffalo defense generates enough points for them to win. I think God damn, did it again. I think Los Angeles wins this game. I think that this is a huge defensive battle. But I think Tyrod Taylor has a revenge game here against Buffalo. I think that he comes back and he's like, I did pretty good with you guys. And I think that he shows them what they're missing. And I think that San Diego has a good – God damn it. Los Angeles has a good game.
Love it.
3 times. We only said Oakland once last episode. I double checked. We only said it once, but I've said San Diego 3 times.
We did. All right. So then Week 13 matchup, they then host the New England Patriots. This was a game originally I had as a toss-up, but even with the Cam Newton signing, I say that the Chargers win this. And the reason is that I like the Chargers defense in this matchup a ton. I think that we don't know what Cam Newton we're going to get. He looks healthy, but we don't know the arm strength. We don't know his actual ability here with the playbook. I like some of the weapons New England has, but I think the Chargers defense is going to be overwhelming. This is a toss-up to me because I want to give the nod to Bill Belichick so bad. But I like the Chargers defense in this matchup, and I think the Chargers offense is going to do enough with the improvements on the offensive line. I think this is going to be a big game for Austin Eckler, especially catching the ball out of the backfield. I'm going to give my nod to the Chargers in this win.
All right, so before the Cam Newton signing, I had them losing to the Chargers, but with Cam Newton going to the Patriots, I think it's going to be, just solidifies my pick. I just think with that Patriots defense, I think it could definitely shut down what the Chargers could put out on offense. And I know we're not sure what kind of Cam Newton we're going to get, but I think like any percentage of what Cam Newton can do is worlds better than what Herbert or Tyrod Taylor could produce. And I think that, Cam Newton's going to make the best with his, his running ability, his stables of backs, and Julian Edelman.
Yeah, I think by this time, Justin Herbert starting at quarterback for Los Angeles. Double check myself there. Because I think that they need some of that energy that you have when you put your young quarterback in. But I think that the worst thing that can happen to a young quarterback is having to face the defensive backfield of New England. I will say it again, New England's defensive backfield is the best in the NFL. And I think they generate enough points for New England to win this game because I'm not sold on New England's offense, even with Cam Newton at quarterback. I still think that we need some big step ups at the wide receiver position, and we need somebody from the tight end position to come through. But I think our defense is definitely wins us this game.
All right. So Mitch, you had the Chargers losing that game, right?
Yes, the Patriots will win.
Okay. So then at the 3/4 mark of the season, Skyler, you and me both have the Chargers at 3-9. Mitch, you have them sitting at a dainty 6-6, but losers of 3 straight. Coming out of it, Week 14, they then play the Falcons. I think that they ride high off their win against New England, and they get a win against the Super Bowl favorite Atlanta Falcons. No, it's the Falcons just have way too many questions on the offensive line. They have way too many questions on the defensive line. They have way too many questions in the secondary. Linebacker position looks troublesome. Their only strong position is quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. Chargers win this game hands down because I think they're going to do enough just to trouble Matt Ryan. This, to me, is going to be a game similar to the Falcons game against Minnesota to kick the season off last season.
Yeah, I have the Chargers beating the Falcons just for one simple reason. I just think this is a total mismatch.
Yeah, I saw something describing Matt Ryan as an aged gunslinger, and I think that was a perfect description of what he's become. As much as I hate, because I like seeing Matt Ryan succeed. I think that he brought some good things to the NFL, but I think that the Chargers defense is just too good, especially against the Atlanta offensive line. So I have to give it to the Chargers.
All right, Week 15 matchup. They then go to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. I have them losing this game. Now I'm going to put a stigma. What?
I think I messed that up.
What do you mean?
I had Chargers winning. Sorry, I totally.
The Chargers beating the Falcons?
Yeah, I totally fucked that up. I thought I had him winning next week. Nope, I have him winning this week. So take everything I said out of the way.
All right, so you have the Chargers.
Oh no, wait, no, I did say no. Chargers win because.
Yeah, you did say Chargers win. I'm confused.
Okay, I got confused. Sorry, I'm confusing myself.
You're so focused on trying not to say San Diego that you're not paying attention to what you're saying. So Week 15 matchup, I have them losing to the Raiders here. I'm going to put a stigma on this in that I think that the Chargers have a good chance to go 1-1 with the Raiders, but it's just in either matchup, I don't like them. So I'm going to say that the Chargers lose, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win one of these.
Yeah, I have the Chargers losing this one just because of the fact that I think it's going to be, tied matchup. So that's my only rationale.
I have Las Vegas winning this game. I think that Derek Carr or even Marcus Mariota, whichever quarterback's in the system, is under a pretty good system, has enough weapons, especially young, fast weapons that I think can take advantage of this Chargers defense. Because as much as I like the Chargers defense, I don't think it's as fast as it needs to be to compete with like Kansas City and with any of the other 3 teams in this division with the speed they have at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. It's just I got a feeling that of any of the teams they're going to compete with the most, it's going to be the Raiders. But yeah. I'm going to follow that up with saying that in the Week 16 matchup against Denver, it's a home game. I have the Chargers beating Denver. I have them winning one divisional game here. I think this is where we're really going to see a little bit of Drew Lock and experience. I think this is where the Chargers are going to learn from their Week 11 matchup against Denver. They're going to get a late season win. It's going to hurt the Broncos' chances in terms of playoff seeding, and I think that's because they're a young team. But I'm going to give this win to the Chargers.
I have the Broncos making a clean sweep of the Chargers. I just really like what the Denver has to offer, and I just think with Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay as a running back tandem, a really big weakness on the Chargers defense is that middle, their defensive tackles, because they're kind of dog shit right now. So I think that it'll be huge for Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay to abuse all game, and that's going to be a key factor for them.
Brady, if you could double check for me, I believe I have Denver winning this game.
Doesn't
God,
come
that's asking a
prepared.
lot.
No, I am prepared. I just want to make sure I'm consistent because I've had to change a couple things since
Yes,
the
you have
episode.
Denver winning this game.
Okay, so yeah, I think I believe it's because I have them winning like 3 or 4 straight at this point. I think that Denver gets hot. I think Drew Lock finally gets some comfort into him. I think that having Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay in the backfield plus the weapons at wide receiver allow him to have some freedom in that offense, and I think that he takes advantage of the Chargers defense. And it's a close game, but I think that Denver wins.
All right, and then the Week 17 to end the season, they go to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. The only way I see the Chiefs losing this game is if they've already locked up the 1 seed and they sit everybody just to be safe. But the Chiefs are just way too strong of a team and hand the Chargers a loss there.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Chiefs winning this. You could pick any week for them to play the Chiefs, and it would still be a loss. It doesn't matter to me. I just think, that offense is just too potent.
Yeah, I think that you look at it, and I think that this offense is too fast. Honestly, not that the defense is not good. The offense is just too fast. I think at every wide receiver position, I think at the running back position, I think at the quarterback position, they're just too fast. The Patrick Mahomes will get the ball out before Nick Bosa or Melvin Ingram can get to the backfield. So I have to give it to Kansas City.
And if he doesn't, he can just throw like a left-handed pass, or he can just throw to somebody who's not looking.
Or not look that way and throw that way.
Yeah, he's a wunderkind. To end the season here, Mitch, you have the Chargers going 7-9. They were at one point in your season 6-3, but they lose 6 of their last 7 games to effectively remove them from any playoff contention. Yep. Skyler, you have them at 4-12, and I have them sitting at 5-11, same record they had last season. So with that being stated, if those are the records, are you guys comfortable with the position the Chargers are going in? Do you think that, like at 5-11, I have them keeping the head coach, who I just drew a blank on what his name is?
Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn. I have them keeping him because I think they understand their developmental, but I feel like his seat gets a little bit warmer.
For me at least, if they go 7-9, I think that they either need to keep, improving Justin Herbert, or look for a better player for that position, and just keep tinkering with that offensive line. I think those are the big weaknesses. And for firings go, I think Anthony Lynn is a really good coach for them. I don't think he's the problem. I would look more towards their GM and Tom Telesco as being the first man to go.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think that they need to restructure some of their things in the front office. I think that if they do finish where at least I expect them, and everything Brady kind of expects them to, that's a top 10 pick. Hopefully they can use it on some offensive linemen. So that they can, do a little bit better, shore up that offensive line, because I think if they get a better offensive line, we saw what Justin Herbert can do with a good offensive line. And even then, top 10, you can get a pretty decent quarterback at that position, because I think next year's quarterback class is a lot better than this quarterback class.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I think I have them right now at the 8th or 9th pick in my draft, still tinkering with it a little bit. But granted, my draft doesn't take into consideration tiebreakers and stuff like that. So I could say 8th, but they could have the 4th or whatever.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, mine's 6.
So no, I mean that's interesting. I think that they're 5-11, but I think they're in a more comfortable spot at 5-11. Like I think that unfortunately they suffer from having to play in the AFC West, but then also having to play the NFC South this year, and I think that hurts them. So I think they're in a more comfortable position at 5-11 this year than they were last season. But it's definitely a rebuild process. So let's move on to our putts. Putts, what a putts segment here. I'm going to go first. My what a putts is the NBA for the NBA bubble here, because I don't know if you have been following some of the reports that are coming out from the players. So first off, none of the amenities, and this is both the NBA as well as the WNBA, none of the amenities that these players have been told have lived up to any form of the expectation. The players' lounge looks like something straight out of like a junior college. It's a couple of video games, it's a ping pong table, it's a couple of TVs and some couches, and that's it. But then the food is just sickening. So like the first dinner they get a tiny spinach salad with some tomatoes, like a half cup of pasta, a single scoop of mashed potatoes, and like a chicken breast, and that's the dinner that they're provided. And WNBA players are reporting cockroaches and worms in their rooms. The food that these people are being served is not anything decent. Luckily, like some players have figured out how to like gun the system. Like Kyle Kuzma posts like sushi and stuff that he's eating that he's getting delivered into him. But like the NBA, how could you not be prepared for this? Like, what was the use of bringing people back at this rate if you weren't going to have the hotels properly taken care of? If you weren't going to have the food that the players require? You're talking about NBA and WNBA players who are running at 4,000 or 5,000 calorie a day diets, and the dinner you're providing them is a single thing of mashed potatoes, a single chicken breast, and some noodles. Like that's like what I ate in college at the like local or at like the UW Parkside food service place. Like that's nothing. Like the NBA needed to do this a lot better. You advertised yourself until baseball swooped in as the sport that was coming back, and you were trying to make this as conducive an environment for your NBA players, and then you just completely fuck it up. So the NBA, fuck you for doing this shit. The players are going to be less concerned to play because they're getting treated worse than they would, like, honestly, if they were just playing in their regular home stadiums.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing. LeBron isn't eating that shit.
No.
Obviously,
on Tuesdays.
I'm excited to see, like, I'm interested to see how the NBA responds to that, because I wonder how much of that's the NBA and how much of that's Disney, because you can only believe so much of what Disney's going to be telling you until you actually get there. So I'm going to be more susceptible with Disney than I am with the NBA.
And here's no. So I'm going to defend Disney on that point, because remember, Disney was told this a month before it happened, that this was what was going to happen. Disney didn't have staff there properly to make sure that the rooms were taken care of, to make sure that the catering was taken care of. The NBA really, and there's reports that came out of it, the NBA really kind of forced this on Disney and promised to pay Disney a bunch of money. Disney did not have the opportunity to take care of these the way that they should have. It would have been easier for the NBA to hire an apartment complex for these players to play in and then allow them to get like pizza delivery and shit like that than it is to treat the players the way that they are. Because there's already talks of players being so dissatisfied that they may leave the bubble because of how bad this is right now.
Well, then the NBA needs to fix this shit.
Yeah, and that's why Disney needs to do their part. Don't get me wrong. Like Disney's the one who's in charge of the catering and stuff. But the NBA paid Disney to do this, and the NBA should have vetted it better, as well as the NBA should have made sure that, hey, if we're going to put players in these rooms, that they shouldn't have cockroaches and worms in there.
Which is true, but if there is one league that I can believe can actually do that, it's the NBA. If this was the NFL or the NHL or the MLS or any other fucking league, I'd be like, there's no fucking chance.
True.
But it's the NBA. Adam Silver is going to be like, what the fuck? Get some people in there right now. Let's talk to Disney. Give me Bob Iger right now.
Yeah.
But
step down.
Yeah. Okay.
He did, but then he like stepped into like another position that's basically the same thing right after. Skylar.
Mitch Putt.
Mitch Putt.
All right, so I'm going to be doing two firsts to our putt segment. So first off, I have two nominees.
Ooh.
And then my second nominee will be a nominee that has not been done before. So first off, my first nominee is NFL players, because it came out today that the NFL is basically limiting after game like contact, and they're getting rid of jersey swapping right now. And all the NFL players are bitching about it on social media and that kind of stuff. And it makes no fucking sense because you have your NFLPA president come out and say, like, hey, NFL, get your shit together. Like, we don't feel safe enough because of this COVID thing. And now they're taking the appropriate measures to do that. And now you're going to complain about it? I mean, their whole point is like, oh, we're going to be playing against each other and making contact and whatever. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a fair point. But you have to do that to do your job. And they're trying to make less of that. They're trying to make it just so.
As much
yeah,
as possible.
exactly. They're trying to limit it to just playing against each other, and that's all the contact you get during the NFL season. And players are too stupid to realize that, and it's just really infuriating.
So who's your second nominee then?
The second nominee is myself, and why I was a putz for this episode is because I had a former Wisconsin Badger come into my store 2 times, and I failed to ask him to come on to our lovely podcast.
I think Mitch just automatically wins Putts of the Year at this point.
Who the fuck was it?
It was Jazz Peavy.
PV?
Yeah.
I even know who PV is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got an autograph from him. Jazz Peavy, for those of you who don't know, he was a great Wisconsin wide receiver. We loved watching him play. He was part of some really great teams. But yeah, I gave Mitch flack for, he was like, he literally called me. He's like, guess who came into my store? And I'm like, I don't know, Barbara Streisand. And he was like, no, Jazz Peavy. And I'm like, well, why didn't you ask him to come on the show? Like, just 10 minutes. Just do a call in, you know? So yeah, Mitch automatically wins Putts of the Year for that one right there. Skylar, try to top that. Who's your putts?
Donald Trump.
Doesn't have to do with sports, though.
Oh, no. This does have to do with sports. And it
Okay.
doesn't have anything to do with him calling Colin Kaepernick and NFL players who kneel sons of a bitches. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's trying to force open schools right now, and that could be detrimental to a lot of small schools and a lot of states and a lot of colleges. No, it has everything to do with how he responded to Bubba Wallace's claims of being, like for a hate crime. Okay, he does what he always does when it comes to these things. He takes something that has nothing to do with him and he makes the situation worse. And that's what he did. He called the noose and all of that. He called it a hoax. And he said that Bubba Wallace needs to apologize to NASCAR fans for being instrumental in them banning the Confederate flag at their events. I'm sorry, Donald Trump, this is something that has nothing to do with you. Okay? I know that's hard for you to understand, but this has nothing to do with you.
As a frequent listener of this podcast, Donald Trump.
I don't care. I don't give a shit. If he listens, I don't want him to. But he'll
tweet about us and get us exposure.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Like, again, this has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with him, but he makes it about him because that's what he does. Okay? I'm sorry I got a little political here, but I'm just this involves sports. And he took a situation that we all deemed needed to happen, that we all thought most of the sports world has deemed needed to happen. NASCAR said it needed to happen. The NASCAR drivers were like, yes, this needed to happen, except for that one guy that really doesn't do anything.
Well, yeah, what was the thing where it was like the one guy who said he was stepping down was like 0-32 in his races?
Yeah.
And he doesn't even
At least
he's not even a
he's
stock car.
continuing the Confederate tradition of not winning anything type thing.
And he's like, yeah, and he's not even a stock car racer. Like,
Yeah.
he's one of like the stock truck driver people. And so it's just, I don't even know what the term is, but he's not a stock car driver.
I think the truck racing is like NASCAR's version of AAA.
I think it is too.
It's like semi-pro. But no, I mean, it was a crappy situation, and I like people who attacked Bubba Wallace because like supposedly the noose had been there for a while, and they're like, well, it's a pull rope, but like if you look at it, you can totally understand. You can totally understand what it was meant to look like. And people are like, how do you not notice that? The thing is, dude, is that I realized I've lived in this place for 4 months. I drive past it every single day. I realized the last week that we had a sign in our front yard.
What kind of sign?
It's like there's a red light up the road type sign. First time I realized that, I literally walked out to grab the mail and I went, when did we get a sign in our front yard? I've lived here for 4 months. So like people walk past stuff all the time without realizing it. Like how many times have people been like, where did I put down that thing? And it's in their hand the whole time. Like that stuff happens. So then when it's pointed out to you, then when you see it, I could understand where he went, oh, that's a noose.
Well, and specifically because he had just been like outspoken.
Yes.
Like the only driver that was like Black Lives Matter. He's the only black driver in NASCAR. Instrumental in getting rid of the Confederate flag at NASCAR events. I'm sorry, if I were him and seeing the backlash I was getting from NASCAR fans in the first race back, and I walk in to my, and this wasn't even him saying this was a NASCAR official that was making sure that the garage was clean and like making sure it was up to speed, that walked in and was like, that looks like a noose. Yeah. So this isn't Bubba Wallace calling shit on this. This was NASCAR going, this is not okay. So Donald Trump, that's mine. That's mine.
So is that garage his, or is it like a shared space that like any race car can use?
So when NASCAR drivers show up to a race, they're assigned a garage.
Okay.
So that garage had been used by previous racers before. So like when like derbies and stuff were there, when stock car was there was drivers assigned to there. So it's not just like his inherent garage. It's assigned to you once you get there, usually based on like team race that you're or team that you're with or standing or stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah, and apparently the news have been there, or the
since October.
Since October, and I mean, like they're only that NASCAR series is only there once a year, so it's like
twice a year,
so it's like it's understandable why nobody thought about it until recently. But I'm done with my putts.
All right, well, we appreciate everybody for listening. Mitch, did we already say what the next subject was for the What's list?
Nope.
Okay, do you want to hint at do you want to tell us what the next subject is for the What's list?
Yeah, we've been doing that. All right. So for next episode, our list will be the top 5 players in March Madness history. And to clarify what the list is, it's only what a player has done during the March Madness tournament. So anything that's done during the regular season or the conference tourney does not count. We are only counting what has been done in the March Madness tournament.
Okay. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a pain to set up because there's so many one-hit wonders that it's gonna be like, are we gonna go with the guys who like maybe did it really well in the tournament for a couple of seasons, or are we gonna go with the guys who had like one great year? So that's
all up to you.
That's gonna be tough. I'm gonna be interested in that. And then on the next episode, we're covering the other Los Angeles team. We have the Rams. That we're going to talk about, and I think we're going to be a lot harsher on the Rams than we were on the Chargers in this one.
Oh yeah.
So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. We've got pretty much all the episodes uploaded here. I'm going on a little vacation, so this episode may take a while to get up. But once you hear it, follow us on all this stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, Reddit, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. Fourth String Sports Podcast. Email us fourthstringsp@gmail.com. Again, that's FOURTH string SP@gmail.com. We're always, eager and excited for any fan points that you guys have, even if it's previous episodes. Talk to us on any of that kind of stuff that you'd like to point out. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Boys, anything else we want to say before we hop off air here?
No, I don't think I have anything today.
Nope.
All right, rock on. Well, we appreciate everybody for listening. This is a monumental episode. We're 20 episodes in here. I think we're about halfway done with the NFL League. We're in the back half now, and we're going to start getting into some more interesting teams here. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. I know, just to flash out some teams that we have, we got like Minnesota coming up soon, and then we got the New Orleans, New England episodes coming up.
San Francisco,
and then even towards the end of the season where we got Washington and Tennessee and stuff like that. So Philadelphia is coming up soon, a bunch of stuff like that. So, any fans for any team that we haven't mentioned, shoot us an email as to your thoughts, and we'll talk about them once we get to your team's schedule there. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Everybody have a fantastic and a safe time. And thank you for listening to the Fourth String Sports Podcast.